This Late Night Linux Family podcast is made possible by our patrons. Go to latenightlinux.com/support for details of how you can join them. Support us on Patreon for access to ad-free episodes and early releases. That's latenightlinux.com/support. Hello and welcome to episode 116 of Linux After Dark. I'm Joe.
I'm Chris.
I'm Gary.
And I'm May.
Welcome back all. Windows 10 has come to an end. Windows 11 is a disaster. Normal people are coming to me asking me, what Linux distro should I use? I'm hearing other anecdotal evidence of other normal people being genuinely curious about Linux. I'm not going to say it's the year of the Linux desktop. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. But there is a definite shift happening. And so my question is, how do we not mess this up? We've been given many of these chances before. And so how do we keep people on Linux and happy with it? And this kind of feels like a culmination of several conversations we've had before. I remember one where we talked about what distro to set people up with if they come to us for help. Should it be the one that we use, the weird obscure, like Chris with his Debian and Mate or XFCE or whatever, or do we just give them Ubuntu? Or do we give them an immutable distro? So I suppose let's start there. Where do we feel about that now that it's actually happening?
I think meeting the person where they are is a good starting point, right? Because I think Valve are very savvy and they've realized that a lot of the reason why gamers use Windows is because of compatibility, not because of fear of being technical, right? So if somebody comes to you and they've already made some choices, you have to strike the balance where you don't sort of dictate to them that it's wrong immediately, because that will put them off, and let them find their own adoption curve.
Well, yeah, like someone came to me and said, I want to set up a TV PC in my living room, mostly for games, but with a little bit of other non-gaming stuff. What should I use? And I just said Bazzite. He'd heard of it anyway, and it just seemed like the logical choice to me.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, I mean, pointing them at something that is relatively mainstream, sensible, and that you have some ability to support, if the proverbial were to hit the fan, feels like a reasonable start to me.
The good thing about Bazzite is that there is a lot of content around it, good content that will guide people. That means that it's not just you. You can reasonably confidently find there's a lot of hype as well, don't get me wrong, but a good content creator from the before times, as it were. And if you check out the video, it will be fairly comprehensive. I'm talking about Explaining Computers, that kind of channel, which is almost like the Open University. If I feel like he's covered a topic that is relevant to the person who's interested, I would send that on. And I might say, the style is not particularly flashy, but the content is well thought out and reasonably well delivered. And as a tutorial channel, very well done, I think, because Chris is a lecturer of computer science as well as a content creator. The problem with some of the others is they can go for flash over effectiveness, let's say.
Yeah, I do like his style. I do like his very relaxed style. It's a little bit slow at points. I do find myself skipping a couple of seconds here and there while you wait for the transitions. But yes, that is definitely a good channel.
And the choices that he makes tend to be relatively conservative for what he uses day to day, right? I mean, he's running Mint with a stock desktop with a 5x4 monitor. These are super conservative choices, but they have worked for a really long period of time for someone who actually relies on Linux to get stuff done.
Yeah, and when people would suggest using Linux Mint, I was generally a bit down on that before, but I think that it's better that they use just some sort of Linux. We've talked about this before, how easy it is to transition between one Linux distro and another, like how to move between them.
Well, assuming your desktop and stuff stays the same for the average user. I made what in hindsight might have been a mistake of setting my Mo up on an Ubuntu LTS 6-7 years ago now. I think it was 1804 at the time. And now I dare not move her to anything else because she has gotten really used to the way that Ubuntu's really opinionated GNOME setup works. And I just wouldn't feel confident that I could replicate that somewhere else so she could move to another distro if we wanted to.
Yeah, but mainstream Ubuntu is a pretty safe choice, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think you're getting fired for picking that.
Yeah, exactly.
And even if underlying stuff changes, they try to keep it looking and feeling broadly the same, whether that's GNOME extensions and things. But it is a good choice. Linux Mint as well, I think, is a good choice. They're talking about reducing the frequency of updates, which in a use case like this is actually good, obviously says the Debian stable user, but that's becoming increasingly a selling point. We hopefully all remember my rant about Slack moving things around. It's kind of the anti-pattern of that. And people actually want that kind of thing. Because you're right, Jota, you opened with Windows 11 is a disaster. And I mean, it genuinely really is a disaster, so much so that it's pushing people, because it's not just even personal preference. It's very glitchy, very slow. The Copilot, people are viscerally turning away from it.
Yeah. And it's no coincidence that it's got buggier and buggier as they've used more and more AI bullshit to write the code.
You had to put it in, didn't you?
Well, yeah. Yeah. I'm sticking the boat in, quite frankly.
I've had a few people contact me with some odd choices, not Bazite, but like first-time user using Arch, things like that. It's like, I don't think I would have picked that, but if you need any help, just let me know. I can see what I can do. We'll just meet you where you are. As we've said, that is really important. A lot of people online, whether that be influencers or just random people on whatever social media app here, do say that a massive reason why they switched away from Linux was because the community is a bunch of assholes.
Yeah.
But you also get the people who don't know what a distribution is or why they're all different. And at the end of the day, the difference basically comes down to, well, people have different opinions on how software is supposed to go together, and they mostly don't affect the user experience, but when they do, you're really going to notice that they do.
I think where Bazite would make me express caution, and maybe some of that image-based operating system model can be tricky, is that they are very interested in what's new, which is great if you follow that. But you can come a cropper if there's disagreements with the project, or if they decide to change things and then change things again. You do move away from that more stable Linux Mint type approach. I think it's really, like you say, May, it's a human problem and gauging the interest. Like, if you get a row of people, some of them I might have a multi-boot live stick and say, we'll try this for a bit, we'll try this for a bit, because they're interested in GNOME versus Plasma versus XFCE, and they want to get a feel of everything. And I've done that with people. But for other people, they're like, no, this is too computery. And you need to make a firmer choice of what you expose to them to give them their first kind of flavor of Linux on the desktop.
Yep, and making sure their software is actually going to work is important. I tried to move someone to Linux who relies on the Adobe suite, and the first thing that we tried was, okay, will Krita work for drawing? Will GIMP work for image manipulation? And the answer was ultimately, no, they won't. So, okay, we're kind of stuck then. And it's important to make those decisions with open eyes as well.
You should have said, have you tried this ancient version of Photoshop that runs really well in wine?
I don't think that would fly.
Funny that. But I think it's really important to make the effort with people. I think that this is a really good chance for us to get people involved and using Linux and happy. And previously, when people have come to me wanting to check Linux out, I've kind of set them up and let them get on with it. And then if they hit some real snags with it, I've kind of been willing to give up and say, right, well, just go back to Windows or just get the Mac. Whereas I think that this time we've got to make that effort. We've got to go the extra mile and really, donate our time to this cause almost.
Donate our time, but not be arseholes about it, I think is the reality. People are put off by why did you choose Arch, in your case, May?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it actually matters, right? Let people make mistakes the same way that we did 20 years ago. And if they get to a point where they are unhappy with their choice, maybe suggest an alternative that might fit them better. But yeah, there shouldn't be a flame war about the distro as the first option.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if they pick something silly, let's face it, an Arch-based distro that is not image-based That's a silly choice for a new person. But if that's what they want to do, then you've got to just do your best to support them. And when Pac-Man breaks for them or whatever, you've got to help fix it.
I think it's about elucidating rather than judging, isn't it? You have to lay out quite calmly and say, one thing to know about Arch is that it's a rolling release model. And to briefly explain that, it means that everything will be updated all the time, which is great to have new things, but increases the chance of breakage. So letting them know without saying, oh, no, you shouldn't be running that, because that will just put them off straight away.
And I think for the people who don't know what they want, just make an opinionated choice for them and stick by it. I mean, when my mum moved to Ubuntu, I thought it was going to be a big deal. But actually it was just, oh, by the way, the shutdown button's here, the button for the browser here, the applications menu here. And she was fine with that. She just adapted and got used to it, and say it's been 8 years now.
Most people don't want to know how their computer works, do they? So I think you're right, Gary. It's about judging your audience, really. It's going to put someone like that off a lot if you try to set it up in the way that is right in your head rather than right for them. Because if they then go to use it and it's unfamiliar or complicated, you're going to put them off even more.
But I don't think that this is a chance for us to get non-technical people, because your average, normal, non-technical person will just put up with Microsoft's bullshit. And they won't like it, but they'll just get on with it. I think the kind of people who are coming to me to ask advice are the kind of power Windows users, the people who actually care enough to know what Linux is in the first place.
Well, and more to your point, Jay, I don't think that the people who don't care are going to do anything. I mean, I was at someone's house this weekend who was just using Windows 10, and they were happy because it still ran all of their applications, didn't know or care about any of the security problems, and I wasn't going to use that moment to pick that fight.
Yeah.
It's the same with how people are used to their smartphones. The idea of being consciously aware of security updates is completely alien to most people. They buy it, it's not broken, it breaks, they buy another one. That is literally all they think about.
Yeah, like I know a bunch of people who are just using older Samsung devices that are 5, 6, 7 years old and haven't seen an update in forever. Or see also people using their phone with their screen smashed. They just don't care because it still works.
I passed down my Pixel 3 and my Pixel 4a, and they're still perfectly in use.
And Android is very forgiving. You know, people I know with iPads, iPhones, it gets to a certain point and apps stop working. It just doesn't happen in the same way on Windows or Android. You can still run an awful lot of software that, yes, it will complain about Windows 7 maybe now, but Windows 10 is fine. It will keep working.
Yeah, and on Android, you can run your banking apps on an ancient Samsung device from, 5, 6, 7 years ago, and it'll just happily open and run, whereas you have an up-to-date custom ROM, and good luck with that.
Mm.
Well, yeah, I've even seen people sideloading the latest Play Store on devices as old as the Nexus 7 and still getting reasonably up-to-date apps.
But I do think you're right, Joe. The growth market are the gamers and the technical people, maybe people who are into using computers for a specific purpose and interested in broadly the technical way the computer works, that are the most susceptible to want to change out of frustration. And that's a good starting point.
Or the people who really care about privacy stuff.
Mm.
Something I was thinking about when I suggested this topic was something that Adam Pigg said in the Late Night Linux Telegram group. He said, I was talking to an old guy in the village. His computer wouldn't take Windows 11, so he switched to Linux and was getting on well with it. Then he said he was using Hyperland, and I had to keep my mouth shut, didn't want to put him off. And the consensus in the group was, yes, you did the right thing. Although Hyperland, fuck Hyperland, quite frankly, and the developers of it. But, if someone wants to use that, probably better than Windows, right?
Probably.
I mean, see earlier comment about not judging people for their choice, right? Sooner or later, you might hope that that person realizes that maybe that's not the best choice for them and switches to something else. But you're right, it is better than using Linux than Windows 10, perhaps.
The majority of people won't ever interact with the community and won't ever get the chance to see the kind of behavior that landed Hyperland in this position for us. So, they won't know.
Yeah, and my understanding is that technically there's nothing wrong with it or anything. It's not full of security holes or anything. It's just made by arseholes.
But plenty of software is made by arseholes, and plenty of projects. We are close to the drama, if you like. You can pick any number of projects at the moment where two lead maintainers are having a huge fight with one another. There's some kind of issue with the sponsorship that's going on. But surely that's better than shoveling shed loads of coal into burners and dirtying up water to also run a terrible operating system anyway. There is a certain continuum to land on, and at least they're heading in the right direction, even if it's not ideal.
But then some distros as well, prominent people within those distros in terms of leadership are promoting AI bullshit.
Yep.
So it feels like you can't win.
I mean, that's just the hype right now, isn't it? As much as I dislike it too, it's like you can't go 2 feet without running into someone using AI.
I suppose.
So what are you going to do? Stare at the wall?
And yeah, the last thing you want to do is start to lay out loads of things that people just haven't read about. And then when you try and talk to them about it, they'll just glaze over it and not care. And let's face it, the proprietary solutions that they've been using have all of this. It's just they don't have public discussion forums and code repositories. The people are still pricks.
Yeah, I think what I'm trying to say is don't start moralizing to people. I don't think the moral arguments are going to be very persuasive, whether that is you should be using open source software for moral reasons, or you shouldn't be using this specific bit of open source software for moral and ethical reasons. I think this Linux thing is better than Windows is probably your best argument.
And we can have the discussions of what's best morally within the community. And if people want to join that, that's fine. But for everyone outside of that, getting from 0 to 1 is still pretty important, even if 1 isn't where we want them to be.
Yeah, getting from 0 to 1 is better than them staying on 0 because we want them to get to 10. I mean, even if they just switch their browser from Chrome to Firefox on Windows, that's kind of a win, isn't it?
That's what May alluded to earlier on. I think a good way in has always been the open source cross-platform applications that they can use without wholesale changing the operating system. You know, my wife, for example, a way in for her was Kdenlive. So I cannot believe that this is free, and she does run it on her Windows machines at work and can also run it at home. And obviously she's running Linux on her laptop now. But that is great advertising for the idea that the operating system can follow a model.
Yeah, the Kdenlive to Linux pipeline.
Yeah, something like that.
Or the Krita or whatever it is, whatever open source software, the Firefox to Linux pipeline.
Or even the slightly proprietary but works on Linux software pipeline. I mean, DaVinci Resolve is a prime example of that, where it works on Linux, but people are trying it first on Windows and Mac, deciding they like it, and then moving over after that.
That is one thing you have to watch out for with content creators, is a lot of them have needs that the people you're talking to don't. Like a content creator really liking Premiere, not getting on with DaVinci Resolve isn't really a knock on Linux. It's a knock on DaVinci Resolve, but then that has the precipitating effect that they can't switch to Linux at all because they won't be able to edit video.
Yeah, and it's the same for me with a bunch of the stuff that I do. There just are not Linux equivalents of some of the software I use for live sound and video stuff. And I can't fully commit to moving to Linux as my daily driver because of that. Is it annoying? Yes, but I do the best I can.
Yeah, and you can't realistically expect someone who's an expert in something like Ableton Live to just suddenly switch to Ardour. Like, it's just not the same software. And yeah, you can achieve a lot of the same stuff with Ardour. But if someone's already invested 10, 15 plus years in some proprietary software, you can't realistically expect them to try and relearn it all, even though some of the principles are going to be the same. The muscle memory just isn't there. And especially if it's something they do professionally or even if it's their hobby, even if, you know, they're making some sort of house music or whatever with Ableton Live, they want to sit down and make music. They don't want to sit down and learn some new software. And I suppose the same thing goes for a bunch of other stuff like accounting software and, you know, other boring stuff.
Or they've got an upfront investment in hardware that just doesn't work on Linux. Like, that's the other thing. Like, you know, am I going to go and buy an entirely new audio interface just to use Linux? Probably not.
No, but if you're buying a new one, you're probably going to go for one that hopefully will support Linux.
Yeah, and it is definitely time for us to be checking these things and helping people through this process to see, like, are you going to have a good experience? Is it likely that you're going to have a good experience? Not counting the you are a human who has different opinions from me, but just the things that you bought previously. Are they going to be okay?
Yeah, and I think that it is irresponsible to say, oh yeah, it'll be fine on Linux if it won't be. You've got to find out, what do they use their computer for? If it is, I open a web browser and check Facebook and email and do some Google Sheets and Docs or whatever, then Linux is going to be absolutely fine for them.
Slam dunk even.
Yeah. And they're going to say to you, wow, my computer's so much faster now, and like, there's just so much less bullshit in the way, whatever. But if they are using Ableton Live or whatever, or the Adobe stuff, it's kind of irresponsible to say, oh, you'll be fine, because they're just not going to be. And I think that we have to accept that sometimes and just, you know, wish them the best on their proprietary operating system. It's not for you, sorry, unless you want to make a huge effort, which I don't expect you to.
That's better.
I think the ultimate secret weapon we still have at our disposal is the fact that you can boot a live distribution for the middle-of-the-road desktop computer user, and they can take it for a test drive properly, which you can't really do with most other operating systems if it's not already installed. Yes, there's kind of guest logins and things, but I do think having, you know, maybe a multi-boot USB or multiple USBs that you can literally take the computer they already have and say, how do you feel about this? Let's connect to the internet. And here's the mouse and keyboard. I will just sit here, and I've done this with people before. I would just sit here and see what you can find. And if it's a reasonably well put together distribution, it's curated to be a software stack for most of the general desktop computing needs that the typical user will want. An office suite, some media players, a web browser, etc.
Yeah. Is their printer going to work?
That's a big one.
Plug it in. Have a look. If it doesn't work, then again, it's pretty irresponsible to set them up with it.
I had the experience of doing this, and then the person wanted Citrix.
Oof.
Yeah.
And it was a Ubuntu 2404. And I checked the machine, it had 16 gigs of RAM. So I was like, okay, there's enough like RAM disk for me to grab this deb. The dependencies were just utter dog shit. So it was just a terrible onboarding experience. And then a couple of weeks later, they actually still, despite that, said, can you come and install it on this older machine? And then said, oh, do you think you can get Citrix working? So I had to use DistroBox for 2204 and then do a DistroBox export. But again, the whole thing started to break down. And it wasn't really my fault. It was, you know, this is proprietary software with a terrible dependency chain that hasn't been fixed for Ubuntu 2404. And the solutions when you Googled it were add the repos from 2204 to grab some of these. It was like, no, don't do this. So yeah, of course, you've got to be careful.
Yeah, I've had that same thing that kept me held back on a previous LTS for a long time with another VDI client. And it is painful because the support for this stuff just doesn't roll in the way that you would hope it would.
So I guess ultimately what we're advocating for is a very reasonable switch to Linux position. If someone wants to do it, we should definitely help them and we encourage listeners to do it, but don't push anyone to do it. And be willing to hold your nose if they pick something that you don't like first try.
Yes, very much. Right, well, on that somewhat positive note, we should probably get out of here then. We'll be back in a couple of weeks, but until then, I've been Joe.
I've been Chris.
I've been Gary.
And I've been May.
See you later.